sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
Welcome back, everyone. This is my full Eternals, Black Knight, and Ebony Blade video. Marvel just released the movie on digital, and they've confirmed we're going to see the Ebony Blade again during Marvel's Blade movie with Mahershala Ali. That was the voice that you heard talking to him at the end of that post-credit scene. I'll also explain what other plans Marvel has for Kit Harington's Black Knight character, and just the history of the character in general. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There will be some connections with Moon Knight later on too, and I will be doing episode videos when that premieres in March this year. But the Eternals movie has a bunch of scenes setting up the Black Knight, but when we meet him for the first time at the beginning of the film, he hasn't fully taken the mantle from the previous Black Knight in his family, who was his uncle. He was the evil Black Knight from the Avengers comics, if you've read the Black Knight comics or the Black Knight's history in the Avengers comics. The mantle of the Black Knight gets passed through their family when each new person takes the Ebony Blade, but they have to physically touch it. So in the post-credit scene, when Mahershala Ali's Blade character asks Dane Whitman, "Are you sure you're ready for that?" just as he's about to touch it, it was him literally about to take up the mantle officially. He would have become bound to the blade and gained all of its powers, but all the negative side effects, the curse of the Ebony Blade. That's the main reason why he was so hesitant to touch the blade, and why he was apologizing, saying, I have to try.
I'm sorry. I have to try.
You can make all the Game of Thrones Jon Snow jokes about the Black Knight knowing nothing of the Eternals till later in the movie, but at the beginning of the movie, even before he learns their secret, before he learns what's really going on with Cersei, he knew about the Ebony Blade and the curse of his family, the curse of the Black Knight. He works at the Natural History Museum with Cersei, so by trade he's a historian and knows his own family's history about the Black Knight. In fact, at the end of the film, he's about to tell Cersei his secret, the secret of his family, during that ending scene before Arishem the Judge shows up and takes her, the other Eternals on Earth, back to the World Forge to judge their memories.
Remember when we talked about no more secrets? Turns out my family history is complicated.
That's what he meant when he said, my family has a complicated history, kind of like your Eternals family has a complicated history. He's the descendant of the original Black Knight, who was named Sir Percy. He lived during the time of Camelot, was part of King Arthur's court. Earlier in the movie, when the Eternals first go back to the Domo, their ship, Thena picks up one of the swords that they've collected from their travels across the centuries. Sprite asks her if it's the Ebony Blade, and Thena says no, it's Excalibur.
Is that the Ebony Blade?
Excalibur.
Arthur always did have a crush on you.
As in the actual Excalibur given to King Arthur by Merlin in The Lady of the Lake. That confirms that Camelot was a real place in the MCU history. King Arthur, Merlin, the rest of the characters from the King Arthur mythology were all real people in the MCU at one point. The Eternals said that they lived in Camelot during its rise and fall. At the beginning of the movie, Cersei even gives Dane Whitman his family's ring with the falcon crest on it. That's what that red bird on it is. She lies and says that she found it on eBay, but really she got it from the original Sir Percy Black Knight after he died. And it's implied she just kept it with her this whole time, even though they imply Makkari is the Eternal with the sticky fingers who just steals stuff left and right. Most of the stuff in the Domo here, most of their treasure trove that they've collected across history is stuff that Makkari has stolen. But this means that the Eternals knew the original Black Knight, Sir Percy, and Cersei knows all of Kit Harington's secrets here with the Ebony Blade. She knows everything the whole time and just doesn't tell him. Since they have that whole non-interference rule thing going on across history, it also sounds like they allowed the fall of Camelot to happen and then just took Excalibur with them after King Arthur died, or Makkari stole it after he died. Merlin, during that period, would have probably been the reigning sorcerer supreme on Earth. In the comics, they have a more complicated way of explaining Merlin because he also shows up in present day as a spirit. They say that he's from Avalon, which is also a place from the King Arthur mythology, but in the Marvel Universe, they say that Avalon is a pocket dimension outside the main Marvel 616 universe. But in the MCU, he's just a normal person like Doctor Strange who trained in magic and became Sorcerer Supreme of his day. So the MCU version of Camelot, King Arthur, all this mythology is just a little bit simpler than the comic book version. The original Black Knight, Sir Percy, was a good character. He started out as King Arthur's squire. Merlin chose him to become the Black Knight. Merlin created the Ebony Blade himself out of a meteorite that had fallen to Earth. I know that makes it sound kind of like vibranium, the vibranium meteorite that crashed to Earth, but the Ebony Blade is not vibranium. It's not adamantium either. It's a different alien metal with special properties. So when Merlin gave him the blade, it was actually part of a very Indiana Jones Last Crusade Holy Grail kind of test. Like, choose wisely amongst all these artifacts that I've created. Merlin presents Sir Percy with a bunch of different types of items created from the same alien meteorite ore, and Sir Percy chose the ebony blade.
You have chosen wisely.
So there are other ebony artifacts, like there's an ebony crown, an ebony shield, an ebony chalice. Maybe they'll introduce those in the future Black Knight projects inside the MCU. Maybe we'll just see the ebony blade and they won't do the other stuff. But it's meant to be a relic type of item, an item that has very powerful magic bound to it, the way they explain that in the Doctor Strange movie with the magical weapons like the Staff of the Living Tribunal. The magic in the weapons or armor is so powerful that it exacts a toll on the user, sometimes in the form of a curse, as with the ebony blade. But it's not a literal curse. If we're talking about the time of Camelot, King Arthur, like a witch or sorceress like Morgana and Merlin did not curse the ebony blade. The reason why they call it a curse, the curse of their family, is because of the way the blade corrupts the user. The more blood the blade spills, the more bloodlust fills the wielder until they lose control and go into a berserker rage, killing everyone. It slowly corrupts them over time, which they actually reference in the movie twice. The first time they reference it is after Cersei learns about the emergence from Arishan the Judge and the Celestials. She calls Dane Whitman and tells him, now would be a good time to make good with your uncle. You always said you wanted to make up with your uncle.
Dane,
Confucius,
call your uncle.
What? My uncle? No.
You've always wanted to make amends with him, right? Now's the time. Trust me.
Implying that Dane Whitman had been on bad terms with his uncle previously. And even though Dane Whitman wasn't telling her the whole truth of the Black Knight, the history of his family, the Ebony Blade, we know that Cersei secretly knows everything about his family and the curse. She was there in Camelot for the original Black Knight, so she knows all about it. But they're implying that Kit Harington's Dane Whitman had a bad relationship with his uncle because his uncle had already succumbed to the curse of the blade. He'd been corrupted by it, turning him evil. And that's them paying off the comics version of the character. In the comics, his uncle was an Avengers villain. He fought Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all of them. The events of the post-credit scene are also right out of the comics. What happened is that after his uncle died, he bequeaths his castle, all of his possessions to Dane Whitman, and then when he goes to investigate the castle, he finds a secret room that contains the ebony blade and the Black Knight's armor, which is where he learns the secret of his family for the first time. The way they changed this for the MCU just a little bit is they explained that Kit Harington's Dane Whitman knew about the ebony blade, the Black Knight history, before his uncle died. But in the post-credit scene, it's implied that his uncle is dead, and that's why he's got the blade now. You only pass the blade on to the next person in your family when you're getting ready to die. The second time they reference the curse is during the actual post-credit scene when he reads the inscription carved inside the case that holds the ebony blade.
Mors mihi lucrum.
Mors mihi lucrum, death is my reward. That was etched into the case by the original Black Knight Sir Percy, his ancestor, during the fall of Camelot. In the context of the MCU, what it means is that the blade will eventually kill him, lead to his death. It will also cause him to spill more people's blood. Like, your reward for wielding this blade will be the death of others and your own death. It brings only death. The blade has a whole bunch of really cool powers, though. After he takes up the blade and is bound to it, if he leaves the blade somewhere special, like if he locks it up inside this case and puts it in the basement of a castle somewhere, he can teleport himself to the blade's location from anywhere on the planet. The MCU version of the Black Knight armor probably just forms right out of the blade itself, kind of the way that Moon Knight's costume manifests around him. You just have to picture Kit Harington's Black Knight picking the blade up and then just summoning the armor from the blade. As long as any part of him is touching the blade, he can't be killed. He can be injured, but he can't be killed, so he's functionally immortal. And the blade will trap the souls of the people he kills with it, strengthening him. That's also connected to the bloodlust that fills him. Like, the more powerful he becomes, the more souls the blade consumes, the more it corrupts him. That's what all the whispers coming off the blade are when he's about to touch it. Those are the dead people who were slain by the blade. It can block magical attacks like Doctor Strange's magical attacks. It can cut through almost any known substance, although it is harder for him to cut through adamantium and vibranium. He can also use the blade as a sort of magical detection device to find other powerful magical artifacts. So the big teaser here in the post-credit scene with the MCU blade Mahershala Ali, now confirmed by the Marvel people also, is that the next place we'll see Black Knight and the Ebony Blade is in the Blade movie next year. And the reason why Blade knows about the Ebony Blade, like he understands his family's curse, is because he had a relationship with Dane Whitman's uncle, previous Black Knight, and they're probably going to establish that the MCU Black Knights across history spent most of their time fighting supernatural creatures like vampires, werewolves, other magical creatures. So basically in the MCU, we're going to be getting Kit Harington, Black Knight Vampire Hunter. I'm also hoping that they do a Black Knight Disney Plus series for his character just to cover more of the history of their family, like more of Kit Harington becoming Black Knight, but also using flashbacks to show us the original Black Knight in Camelot and other versions of the Black Knight from across his family's history. Kevin Feige also implied that he'd cross over into Avengers 5 when they get ready for that movie, along with Cersei, maybe another Eternals character or two, but mostly Cersei and Black Knight, because they were longtime members of the Avengers in the comics. Marvel actually just did a new Black Knight series last year called Curse of the Ebony Blade, so you can tell they're rolling hard on his character in the future of the MCU. Also, don't be surprised if Marvel puts him on another supernatural, darker MCU team-up like Defenders or Midnight Suns, with characters like Blade, Ghost Rider, Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight, just a darker MCU team-up in general. If you do have any other questions about the Black Knight, his history, how they're going to use him in the MCU, just post them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. I will be doing full episode videos for Moon Knight when it releases in March this year. You can click here for my full Moon Knight trailer video, and click here for that new Eternals Black Knight deleted scene with Kit Harington. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.